Hello, everyone, and inside today's Locked On Canadiens, development camp is over, and we've got reviews.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1107 of Locked On Canadiens. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and remember to make every moment more because with the playoffs over, the sports stop sportsing like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all new customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. Something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. This is, of course, your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day of the week on Google, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your daily podcast, or on YouTube as well, if you are into the video format of things like some of us are. I am your host, Scott Rella. I am running solo this morning here, and we've got a lot in the show today. We're going to talk some contracts, some trade speculation, ideas, signings as we enter the second full week of free agency, I guess you can call it here. But before we jump into all of that, definitely want to point out that development camp was at the end of last week, and normally they're used, and maybe I'm misremembering, and this is rookie camp that I am confusing with this, but there used to be, I thought they would do off ice measurements and some training and stuff, and then do on ice, and then do a scrimmage, then on ice, then a scrimmage, then a day of just another full game simulation, and that was it. Down to just one scrimmage live game portion, whatever you want to call it, at Canadiens Development Camp this year. And we kind of went over who's on the roster, who's going to be there this past week. And there was a lot of big names missing. Ivan Demidov is not there. Atos Koivu is not there. Lane Hudson is not there. David Reinbacher is not there. Philip Machar is not there, etc. And that stands out is that there were a lot of invites and tryouts to this camp. The Canadiens invited a lot of people to this camp. They had 13 actual drafted players and 17 invites, 30 total players with that. And obviously, like, I wasn't in Brossard to watch the forward sessions and the defenseman sessions and how all these things happen. I was able to watch the, pardon me, the actual scrimmage on July 4th between the Team Red, Team White. And I'm kind of basing what I've seen and what I've read in camp off of everything that I've seen here. And the biggest surprise to me, and this shouldn't be a surprise, Owen Beck is probably didn't need to go to this camp. I thought it was very surprising that Beck was at this camp, but Philip Machar was not, and that Lane Hudson was not, and that David Reinbacher was not. That Hudson played a lot of games this year and then played NHL games, yes. Owen Beck played a full OHL season, a full OHL playoff run, or as deep as you could get in an OHL playoff run, and then a full Memorial Cup run en route to a Memorial Cup title, and was invited to this. That to me stands out as this is someone who I really didn't think probably needed to be there, but was. But he left, I believe, with a lower body ailment. They did not say what it was. Obviously, why would they? It's development camp. There's no reason for them to list that. I thought he looked very good, was very clearly one of the top prospects there. He's going to be pushing for an NHL spot when one rookie camp and actual main camp opens up in September. There's not a doubt in my mind of that. Owen Beck is someone they believe a lot in. The two names that definitely stood out for me at Canadiens Development Camp, and this shouldn't surprise anybody, Jacob Fowler I thought was immense, absolutely outstanding when he played, composed. He faced, and this is a 4-on-4 scrimmage, so it's a lot of odd man rushes and breakaways and stretch passes. It's not as close to game simulation. It's more video game settings than anything else. And I thought for the most part, Jacob Fowler, out of the 4 goalies that were invited, so you had Fowler, you had Quentin Miller, you had Emmet Croteau, who did not play or take part in most of these things due to a lower body injury, and Mikas Vekvanegs, the newest draft pick. And that's probably actually the order in which these goalies impressed me. And yeah, Croteau did not play or do anything and still was above the other guy, but that's not the point. Jacob Fowler, to me, truly stood out. He's composed. He battles for everything. Makes a lot of saves without scrambling every movement. And I talked about with Carey Price in his prime, that an economy of movement, and that he is steady and smooth and everything has a purpose, that he makes the difficult things seem second nature. Facing a breakaway blocker save out here. Oh, he's got a guy coming in. He's got the glove. Oh, someone's coming here. Shoulder up on that. Pads down. Everything is second nature to him. Jacob Fowler, to me, looked absolutely incredible in this camp. His new Patrick Waugh-inspired Canadiens mask is a huge flex on his part. I really appreciate going with an homage like that. And all of that reeks of, this is a kid who, as soon as Boston College's season is over, he is signing his entry-level contract and moving up to the NHL level. And we'll talk about entry-level contracts and stuff in our next segment. But also, who stood out to me, Michael Hage was phenomenal in the scrimmage. A step faster than most people on the ice, a step smarter than most people on the ice there. I thought he had a lot of moments where I'm watching him make plays that seemed easy. He was on line with Sam Harris and Alexander Zetterberg in the scrimmage. We'll talk about Harris in a moment there, but Hage had a moment where he gets a pass, he spins off a defender to the net, and then just snaps one far corner off the next face-off, a tic-tac-toe passing play to set up Sam Harris for a tap-in. Just so many little skilled parts of his game with his edge work and his ability to just create offense. And someone on Twitter pointed this out, and now I can't unsee it, is that he plays a lot like Jack Eichel did. I'm not saying he is Jack Eichel, but he plays with that same style and the posture, and the way that he commands the puck in the offensive zone reminds me so much of that. And the confidence that he is always going for net. He is not looking to make a save. Like, he is looking to put the puck in a better position every single time. And that, to me, is, I love that. I love seeing a guy whose only instinct is get towards the net, pucks towards the net, body towards the net, advance the puck position. Guys who are assertive in that regard is stuff that I love. And it's why Ivan Demidov, when he does come over at the end of his KHL contract, I think is going to be a boon. You've got a guy who loves to just get the puck further up the ice, towards the net, towards scoring areas. That's awesome. I love that. Because Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield can, play a little bit of the perimeter game. Nick Suzuki can obviously battle in the net front, but Caulfield knows how to get himself in shooting lanes. Juraj Slafkovsky is everywhere, behind the net, in front of the net, around it. More and more of these guys getting that assertive nature to get towards the net to make things happen, a la Brendan Gallagher, is a welcome sight. Make it hard for goalies to make saves. Make it hard for defensemen, like, oh, he's going to pull up, and then all of a sudden he stutter step past you and he's towards the net. Love that. Hage really, really impressed me. And I know it's a 4-on-4 development camp. Yeah, I believe he's going back to the USHL this year. I believe he's going to Michigan. You've got opportunity for these guys. And I'm all for that. Also, it stood out to me, Sam Harris I really liked. He was on the University of Denver, who won the national title this year. Kind of an under the radar piece there. He finished with 21 points this season, but a team loaded with talent. Guys like Zeev Buium, et cetera, on that team are taking the spotlight because they were very, very good for Denver, obviously. He's going back again this year and will probably play a larger role as the Denver team is probably going to lose a few people to graduating out of it. I want to take a look at who is actually on this University of Denver team this year. And on this team, Jack Devine signed by Florida, Zeev Buium drafted, Massimo Rizzo, Tristan Braz, Shai Buium, he's Sean Barons. And then you have a little bit further down there is Sam Harris with 42 games, 21 points, 14 goals, 7 assists, 27 penalty minutes, 13 plus minus. Like, not a terrible freshman season there. I'm very curious who will be on that team next year, just because it's a different team. You're going to have guys who have graduated that have moved on. The only people that are on the Denver roster for 24-25 are likely incoming freshmen and stuff. Sam Harris really impressed me. And I want to give a shout out to Bronson Ride, not a guy that I know much of anything about, but I heard his name all the time. He was always on the puck. He was always in spaces, making things happen during that rookie scrimmage. It's a good way to get yourself noticed. Doesn't mean anything's going to potentially come of that, but it's a good way to get yourself in the eye of this coaching staff. And Tyler Thorpe, dude can shoot. I'm really intrigued to see if they can fix some of the other parts of his game, because when I watched him shoot, it's heavy, like Yoel Armia heavy. When he gets the body weight behind that, pucks are flying. He made even a guy like Jacob Fowler, who was playing really well in this scrimmage, he made him look silly with that release, and it's top level kind of stuff there. Speaking of prospects, entry level contracts, extensions, etc., we're going to talk about, can we expect to see any of these coming up for the Canadiens in our next segment. I love sports. You know that I love sports. I wouldn't be hosting a podcast if I didn't love sports. I never want them to stop, but the playoffs are done and over with. We've got fewer games on TV, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. You've got the MLB season in full swing. There was a 6-player trade in the NBA. What other chaos is going to happen there? You've got the Euros. You've got Copa America. And right now, with all of that in mind, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Just head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer, because FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and us here at Locked On. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. We are your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, and we are now in the, I'm not going to call it the doldrums. The doldrums is August, when there's not even camps and stuff going on right now. I am looking forward to, when does the next round of extensions and stuff happen? Because right now, the Canadiens are sitting on a few players in need of contracts. Justin Barron and Arbor Xhekaj are their two RFA, are there only 2 free agents left. And as of right now, the Canadiens have $10 million in cap space to play with on that. And there's also the potential Caden Gooley extension as well that can be signed, a lot like Juraj Slafkovsky's was. And for me, I'm kind of looking at this team and going, what's the next move here? And what actually kind of triggered this thought in my head is, hey, when are we going to start seeing entry-level deals? Other teams have signed a bunch of their players to entry-level deals. The biggest being Chicago signing Artem Levshinov to his entry-level contract, meaning he is leaving the NCAA after 1 season and moving up to the professional level. Not a choice I would have made, but I'm not the Chicago organization. Whatever. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. Good for them. I'd say Godspeed, but I wish you only the worst. But people are going to be like, hey, when are our next players going to get signed? Who's going to get signed? And the biggest thing is I would not expect an entry-level contract coming for anybody in the Canadiens organization anytime soon. Not because there aren't players worth signing to these entry-level deals. Look at the end of last year. You got Lane Hudson. You got Luke Tuck signed. The big ones that are upcoming next year are going to be a guy like Rhett Pitlick, whose 4 years in college are done and over with. He might be a potential ELC candidate, depending on what you want to do with him. But out of this draft class, and even out of some of the other one, a lot of these guys are going to the NCAA. They're going the college route, because Kent Hughes is giving them that time that they can see their development, decide whether or not they're worth that entry-level contract. Demidov cannot sign an entry-level contract because he currently has a valid KHL contract. That we knew. He won't be over here until that contract is over with. Michael Hage will be going to the University of Michigan eventually. He can't sign an entry-level deal. It violates the NCAA rules. And Logan Sawyer, etc. And there's no rush to sign a guy like Owen Protz or Tyler Thorpe to an ELC right off their draft. Is that these are not guys that you are betting on first-round picks. These are, let's see how you play this year, and then we'll adjust from there. Like if Thorpe comes out and becomes, let's say, a 35-goal scorer in the WHL this year, the Canadiens might go, yes, let's do that. But a lot of the pieces in the Canadian system now are going the college route. And there's not likely to be there's not going to be an ELC because they're not there's no need to rush Michael Hage to the professional level now. Let him continue to grow his game in that regard. Logan Sawyer, there's no need to rush him. Let him grow his game, etc. And your later round picks, a guy like Ben Merrill, there's no reason to sign him to an entry level deal right now. He's still in high school. Like, give him time to grow and adapt, and then see where you're at with that. The one that I'm curious about is Atos Koivu, but he's going to likely be pushing for a full-time Liga spot this year. And I assume they'll see how that goes before signing him to his entry-level deal. You see, they've shown patience with guys like Oliver Kapanen, even a Philip Eriksson. They're very patient and let these guys grow without the pressure of that contract hanging over them. Adam Engstrom was drafted in the Slavkovsky draft in 2022. And, it took 2 years to get him signed and over here, potentially coming into this season here. Oliver Kapanen was drafted before that, and he just signed his entry-level deal. He won't even be playing full-time unless he makes the NHL team this year. I wouldn't be expecting any entry-level deal for the Canadiens, but not because they don't have players worth signing, just because those players aren't in a position to sign that yet. We may see Hage do 1 year at the University of Michigan and then jump ship if he's good enough. The next entry-level deal that I do truly, fully expect to be signed is Jacob Fowler and Ivan Demidov in the spring. I don't expect an entry-level deal before that for anyone else. Maybe Rhett Pitlick, depending on how the University of Minnesota season goes, but I'm not anticipating anything besides Fowler and Demidov in the spring right now, and that's fine. The Canadiens can be patient with that. The big thing is people are asking, what about extensions? Because we've seen like Slavkovsky got done immediately, 7.6 for 8 years. We did several episodes on it, and it rules, and because it makes the worst people in the world angry. Love it. Then the two people that are up for free agency right now are Arbor Jacki, who is an RFA, and Justin Barron, who is an RFA. I would not be surprised if Justin Barron is part of a potential trade to another team in a deal. Obviously out there are free agents like Natchez, or not free agents, but trade pieces, Laine, Natchez, Ehlers, Rucker, McGroarty, etc., that I could see Justin Barron being a piece of that in there. But I could also see them going, hey, here's a 1 year, $950,000 extension. Show us your worth in this. Arbor Jacki is where it gets more complicated, because this is a guy who I think fan expectations are at one level, and where his performances is still at a very good level, but they don't quite match up yet. Arbor Jacki is such an interesting piece because he has all the tools to really be a dynamite top four player. It's staying healthy and putting that together. Obviously, 2 back-to-back shoulder surgeries are going to change the way that he shoots the puck and plays the game a little bit. Good thing he's got Cole Caulfield, and I don't know if it's good that Josh Anderson could potentially teach him in this, but regardless, 2 guys who have gone through shoulder surgery that can help him recover from that. And Jacki's the kind of guy that I look at and then I go, get a little bit of term on there. And let's say you do 4 years at 2.75 per. He gets a nice raise. It's a well-deserved raise. It makes him the 3rd highest paid defenseman on this team behind Mike Matheson and David Savard. Savard makes 3.5. Jacki would come in just under that. Jordan Harris makes 1.4. Lane Hudson makes 950,000. Caden Gooley makes 863,000. More on him in a second, but I'm very curious to see when that Jacki extension gets announced. And now that I am recording this episode at 1 p.m. on Sunday, July 7th, it will probably drop first thing Monday morning, making this episode obsolete. But there's also Caden Gooley. Kent Hughes was asked about Caden Gooley. Like, hey, you've got Slavkovsky's contract done. What about one for Caden Gooley, who's in a similar spot? And they're working on it. And I have no doubt in my mind that a Caden Gooley contract, a lot like the Slavkovsky one, will get done. I've seen some pretty hefty projections for him in terms of term and of value, a cost on that contract. I'm not smart enough to know specifically what those numbers are, but Caden Gooley also feels like he's a lot older than he is. He's only 22. And I could see them going long-term. I'm talking like 6 to 8 years and giving him $4 million and really because he's a guy who plays top pairing minutes a lot. He plays a lot of tough defensive minutes. And the results don't always match up because, bless David Savard, he's playing with David Savard. And sometimes his pairing with Matheson doesn't work out the way that it could. That, I think, if anything, if I'm ranking the order of these things getting done, it's going to be a Gooley extension, a Jack-Eye extension, and then a Barron extension and potentially trade with that. Next year, things get a lot more interesting because there's a lot of UFA money coming off the books. Dvorak, Armia, Savard are all off the books. It'll be one of the last years of Carey Price's contract as well, and they will free up their retention spots from the Jeff Petrie and Jake Allen trade. And coming next year, Sidney Crosby's a free agent, so let's just keep that in mind. I want to actually now pivot to one last thing. I had a thought in my head about some trade scenarios, and I have one that I think is going to be very, very funny. And we're going to get into that coming up next. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens, and as it stands right now, looking at the snapshot on Cap Friendly, $10.18, $10,180,417 in cap space. Factoring in, let's say, even $3 million for Jack-Eye and $1 million for Justin Barron, who are their only two restricted free agents currently unsigned on this team, you're leaving over $5 million in cap space for the Canadiens, and they have their LTIR candidate in Carey Price as well. And the goal is to be as close to zero before you put him on LTIR to get the max amount of LTIR cap space with there. They have a lot of space to play around with. They have 5 roster spots. They have 42 of 50 contracts. Their reserve list is at 68 of 90. Obviously, that'll go up when, as on the IR right now, is Kirby Dach. So he will go back. That's one of those spots there. And then they're going to call up some guys from the AHL potentially as well that are not on the roster, not signed. So even with Jack-Eye Barron re-signed plus Dach coming back, you still have space for a contract. And my thought is free agency has gotten a little bit quiet because we are in that part of the season here. And my thought is I'm looking at the players who are on free agency that are UFA. And my first thought is the only one that stands out to me, quite frankly, is Daniel Sprong. 43 points in 76 games. Would not surprise me if they take a flyer on a guy like him, because I don't think Kent Hughes is going to do the offer sheet style in this. Because there's a lot of guys out there that I think would be, if they can be offer sheeted, I'd be all for it. A guy like a Seth Jarvis, Quentin Byfield, even Cole Perfetti in Winnipeg, who's an RFA, are options. But my thought is there's one guy out there who is still rather young and does not want to be in his current situation anymore. That so much has been known from the minute he was qualified. And I'm talking the lesser Robertson brother, Nick Robertson, playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, those of you who have followed this podcast and follow me on Twitter know I find it very funny that there were people that told me Nick Robertson was better than Cole Caulfield, despite all of the evidence in front of them. Robertson has had a lot of tough injury-related seasons with Toronto, and that just when it seems like he gets going, high ankle sprain, knee injury, whatever, in that he's only played 87 NHL games. He's put up 34 points in those 87 games, in most of those coming last season, where he put up 27 points in 56 games with the Toronto Maple Leafs. With the Marlies, he's too good for the AHL at this point. He put up 16 points in 21 games in the COVID year with the Marlies, 28 and 28 with the Marlies, went up to Toronto, scored a goal, and then got injured. 2 goals in 2 points in 2 games with the Marlies in 22-23, 5 points in 15 NHL games with the Leafs that year. This year, he had 11 points in 9 games with the Marlies, and then put up 27 points in 56, obviously. No points in the playoffs this year. He seems like someone who needs to be... I never really understood Sheldon Keefe's usage of him, and that he never seemed to get a long look in that top 6 with the Nylanders, the Marners, the Tavarises, the Matthews, and that they ran Bertuzzi and they ran Domi and they did this and they did that. And I didn't fully get it. And I'm just wondering if this is a guy that just needs a fresh look a change of pace, basically, from where he's at. And my thought is, what if he comes in and he's a potential middle six, top six option there that you put him with on a third line? You have Evans, you have Armia, and you have Robertson, and you let them kind of do what they do. It just reeks of, and 2019 draft class, because Kent Hughes loves to get pieces from the 2019 draft class. If just adding that in there and changing the scenery a little bit kind of awakens what we've seen the best of Nick Robertson. Because I've watched him in the AHL, and he's a terror. He's a very good goal-scoring forward, something the Canadiens lack right now based on Josh Anderson being Josh Anderson and such. And I'm wondering if Nick Robertson is one of those guys. And it seems like he openly said he's like, I'm being qualified, but I'm looking for a trade, a change of scenery here. Because it seems like based on who's been re-signed in Toronto this year, that path forward is not available to him. And it seems like the cost shouldn't be overly high right now. He's an established NHL quality player, but he is not an established NHL player, if that makes sense. He's a guy who has put together some brief glimpses of showing stuff, but always ends up the odd man out in Toronto for some reason. There were games that he was scratched for Ryan Reeves and Bobby McMahon on a heater, etc. And that's a tough thing to overcome if you are a young player looking to really break into the NHL. Short of that, I still think Hughes is in on some of these trades, whether that be Laine, whether that be McGroarty, whether that be Natchez. I don't think Trevor Zegras is happening anymore. That front has gone very, very quiet right now, which makes me believe that's not a thing that's going to happen. And I'm just going to bring up Twitter to make sure nothing crazy has happened in the time that I've been recording this. And right now, yeah, it seems like we're all good on that front. I still think Hughes has something up his sleeve with some of this glut of prospect defensemen that he has available to him to improve the current NHL roster. Maybe he can shed one of these other contracts that's lingering over the team right now. I'm not saying that's going to be Anderson. I'm not saying that's going to be Gallagher. I think they want to keep Brendan Gallagher around because he's been a good leader for this young team. And he had a pretty good bounce back second half of the year. Maybe not the 30-goal guy we saw before, but if he's a double-digit contributor in a middle six role, you're probably doing all right because he still generates a ton of chances. And he is a leader and a warrior out on the ice there. Giving him some youth on that line might reinvigorate that. I'm not saying that's the thing that's going to happen. I just think it would be funny. And I also think that the timing matches up of Robertson wants to leave. The Canadiens are always looking for more young help. He's 22 years old. Turns 23 on September 11th. And it's not a huge downside unless the Maple Leafs are asking the sun and the moon. But for a guy that did not play games over someone like Ryan Reeves regularly, I'm not too worried about it. I think that he could be got for a relatively affordable price, whether that be draft picks or fringe prospect swap, whatever. I'm realizing he's kind of their version of Jesse Ylönen. So that's going to wrap up our show today. Remember to follow us on Twitter. We're at LO_Canadiens. You can email us at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. You can follow myself at Scott Matla. You can find us wherever you get your daily podcast, Google, Apple, Spotify, and beyond, here on YouTube.com. You should go check out our special announcement if you missed it for whatever reason. There's some big news in there. We've got so much coming up this summer, folks, that you don't want to miss it. But that'll wrap up this show. We'll see you all next time.